Hi everybody, Vanessa here from the Craft Corner. I hope that you are looking forward to doing some creative activities with me. I have some really fun projects planned. I've got my Christmas jumper on and I am all ready to go. So without further ado, let's gather our materials and let's get started. In our first episode, we looked at using gift wrap, and for this episode, we're going to look at using old Christmas cards that I saved from last year. So I'd save my favourite Christmas cards and then I'll cut out my favourite parts from them. Now, obviously, you can only do this for personal cards. You can't sell these cards, but it's a great way to reuse cards that would otherwise just be put into the bin, especially if they have parts that can't be recycled on them. And sometimes I might end up cutting out quite a few pieces and I just have them. I keep them in a little envelope and then you never know when you're going to use them. That's a little plum pudding that I did last year and I didn't use. And this year I'm going to cut out these little like Santa's gnomes. And when I'm cutting it out, you can see here, I move the piece around. So I'm moving the piece of cardboard around, try to get a smoother cut. Now, you could also use a craft knife with this. I'm using a scissors here. Safer for small hands if they're helping. It's great practice for fine motor skills as well. I'm just going to get the smaller pieces with a craft knife, but just cut away as much as you can. You can always leave little bits at the background. You don't have to cut away every little section. So have a look through your favorite Christmas cards and start cutting out the pieces that you love. And this is also a habit to build for next year, saving those cards that you get this year that you really like. I'm going to pick a rectangular card blank for this. And the first thing I'll do is I'll look at all the different bits I have cut out and play around with the positioning, maybe the orientation of the card. I'm still a bit torn between the dog and the gnome, but I know where it's going to go and that it's going to be a portrait card. The next thing I'm going to do is do some hand lettering. So for my hand lettering, the easiest way to do hand lettering is to do simple capital letters. I'm using a black fine liner pen here. And what I do is I add like an extra line to parts of the letter. So I don't do it for every part of the letter, but just sections. So on the or here, I add a second line at the back. And it's just a very simple way to give kind of substance to your lettering and without getting too complicated with italics or calligraphy. For the bottom one, another tip is that you can use a ruler, so you could do a small pencil line, or you could use a ruler just to help keep them. If you find that when you're doing your lettering that your lines are going up or down, you can use the ruler. And for long words where I might run out of space, I do the first letter on one side and the last letter on the other side, and then I work my way back towards the middle, because with longer words sometimes you can end up running out of space. So I do the C at the front, then the S at the back, and you can see here I'm just adding in like an extra little bit of thickness there to the S, and then I start working my way back towards the middle. So for Christmas, I'm gonna do the H next and then just work my way from each side. And remember that you're not adding a thickness to every part of the letter. It looks much better if you just do it for certain sections. Keep all of your letters capital. Again, it just looks better. It's easier to do if all the letters are capital letters. So you could pick whatever text you're going to use. If you're not confident with hand lettering, you could use a stamp like I have there, or you could cut out from another Christmas card too. So up at the top, the Mary isn't quite centered, and I'm going to add a little bit of holly to this side just to make it look like it was part of the design and I meant to leave that gap there. So that's a good tip if you find that your lettering isn't centered or it looks a little bit off to one side. Add a bit of a design. You could do a stamp, you could do a little bit of an illustration. Doing holly leaves, it's really simple and it's an easy way to add kind of texture. I'm going to use markers for this to just add in those thicker parts of the letters. I'm going to add some colour. You don't have to, you could leave it black and white. I'm just going to use two colours on this card, just green and red. So I'm going to do green for the lettering and red for little parts of the holly. And I'm still trying to decide if I want the Christmas gnome on this one or the dog. I mean, I'm going to use both of them, but I think for this design, I'm going to go for the little dog. I like how the scarf is going backwards, almost the way the holly leaves are. So use some glue. I'm just putting a little bit of Pritt stick on this and I'm going to stick it down to the card. You could use PVA glue either. For something like this, Pritt Stick is perfectly acceptable. So when you stick it down, just press lightly. If there's little parts, you might need to use something to smooth it down as well. So there you have an upcycle Christmas card. I signed the back of mine with the date as well. I hope this has inspired some creativity in you this Christmas, and I look forward to seeing what you make yourself. Happy crafting!